this past spring, this past May, and I spent a lot of my time out there in Nassau County campaigning for somebody. Never expecting we could flip a district on Long Island that had been Republican forever, right? And back on May 23rd, that district flipped Republican to Democrat, just like we see in our emails. And at that point, it was like this amazing realization that because of what's happened in our country, as upset as most of us were last November 9th, waking up and wondering how we'd ever get through another day, what it awakened in this country is what gave us a lot of hope. And it's not about me running for borough president. It's about getting people active and interested in elections. Elections matter. If anybody still doesn't think elections matter, look at what's happening. It's the tragedy overnight in Las Vegas. Many years ago, when I was kind of a young radical, you remember me back then, my friend Teresa, by the way, who lives in the Ansonia, where I spent a lot of time as a youth, which is why the Upper West Side is kind of my home away from home. She remembers when I was very radical, very long hair, and didn't want to have anything to do with either political party. But as the years went by, it was obvious that there was one party that was against working people, against tenants and apartments, against LGBTQ people. There was one party just dead set against all those things. And for somebody like me, there was no choice but to become active in the Democratic Party. Our mission now is to give that Democratic Party a good kick in the butt and get it moving in the good direction. And that's the reason I'm running, not just because I can get elected and say, wow, what a great victory we had, but to try to encourage other progressive people to get up there and say, we can do this. My wife Liz out there somewhere at the front table, she and I realized we could do a grassroots campaign, and thanks to the city's campaign finance laws, actually get matching funds to actually run a real campaign without getting any money from PACs. As of today, I haven't received $1 from any elected official. This is something we did 10, 20, like Mike gave me $20 here and $5 from his daughter and $20 from his wife. Small contributions like that built up so that we were able to qualify for matching funds. That's what we want to prove to people, that don't get discouraged, get excited. Don't look at the horrible thing that happened last November and say, this is just pointless. There are ways to run for office that people may not have even thought about before. And that's what we need to have excitement all over to get people thinking, this is it, elections matter. And as I pointed out, why do elections matter? Well, one party has been clear. I want to see some Republican get up tomorrow and ask for gun control. I want to see it happen. I'm not going to see it happen. It's a pipe dream. But this is what's happened in our country. The Republican Party has completely abandoned any semblance of trying to help people out. So, Democratic Party. What can you do? Push the Democratic Party, towards where it should have been all along, at least since FDR. So that's why I'm running. I'm glad you're here. You can all help me, by the way. Staten Island isn't that far away. You hop on the number 2 train if you're on the west side, or the 4 or 5 on the east side, right down to the ferry. Pretty 22-minute ride. But actually, what we're going to do, we're going to have in the Manhattan side of the ferry, in the afternoons, starting after Columbus Day, we'll have people there. So if you want to help out, please tell me when you can come down. We'll make sure that people there meet you with lit and other canvas sheets. We'll be in the Staten Island ferry, like I said, starting, I guess, next Tuesday is the day after Columbus Day. Just let me know, use the sign-up sheets, let us know when you can help. We'll contact you. We're going to try to have people there every day from now till the election. That would help a lot. 5 years ago, I'm getting the name wrong, 3 Parks, what's the name of the club? 3 Parks Dems came down to help one of our congressional candidates. It was amazing. We're only supposed to have 3 people in the ferry at a time, and about 10 people came down from that club. It was great. The ferry workers who know me came over and said, Tom, we're supposed to have 3 people here. I says, I know, what can I do? The whole club came here as well. Because you're a good guy, I'm not going to bother you, just don't harass any of the customers here. And so I said, of course not. So if you guys can do it again for me, I'd really appreciate that. If you can't, you can write a check. I'd appreciate that too. Any way you can help. And of course, I'm going to see a lot more of you now that I know I got a genuine Staten Island person here. Thanks so much.
Can you just, one of the reasons that I'm excited by Tom's campaign is Tom has been a leader of the Staten Island Democratic Association, where there have been material gains on the North Shore and beginning in mid-Staten Island. And one of the things I've learned from Tom and Liz and all our Staten Island friends, there's no reason to cede Staten Island, and we have 2 state Senate seats that are problematic. The only Republican from Long Island, I told Wendy, we made 18 trips in the healthcare movement with NISNA to make sure that Dan Donovan didn't vote the wrong way, and Tom was a leader of that, and 8 trips to the Bay Ridge side too. But it's also, Tom has introduced me to hundreds of people, including this incredibly diverse event of Staten Islanders, Latino and African American Staten Islanders, and Muslim American Staten Islanders. Staten Island is a changing.
Yes.
There are death penalty Democrats, that's your term, you've told me, that we need to flip, but they're registered Democrats. And there are people in Mid-Island and now on the South Shore that have been, I'll use the word, displaced. I should let you address this, because I learned this all from you in campaigning and going door to door on the South Shore and mid-Staten Island. So I actually think that that's a place that we shouldn't cede. And it's one of the reasons a lot of us, all the Democrats in Staten Island, the Working Families Party got on board immediately. He was not controversial because he's done all this work there all these years and he's known and liked. So, I should let you have the last word.
Please don't write off Staten Island. We've got this. We have this tremendous immigrant community that, to be honest, both parties have been writing off. Is Zinnia out there somewhere?
Yeah.
Mitch, is there? Zinnia yesterday, and my wife and I were walking through Port Richmond, which is a very Hispanic neighborhood. And it's clear that, unfortunately, both sides of the aisle have just sort of, talk about writing people off, seating people off. These communities have just been forgotten. Unfortunately, that's also why they don't bother voting. They don't see anything coming back to them. So,
and these are citizens who could vote.
Yes.
Of course, they're citizens, right? Not every immigrant is on a green card. That's true. We've also got a huge West African community, and a huge South Asian community, and a huge East European community, and they're registered to vote. But for a lot of them, it's like, if they have something else to do that day, which is why we also need election law reform. If they have to work, and people in Staten Island have some of the longest commutes in the country. You get home late from work, you don't feel like voting, it's a problem. But that's the thing, we have to energize those people and make them realize, there are politicians that really care about you, that want to do things. Definitely don't cede Staten Island. Look at the people on Staten Island who feel, they call us the forgotten borough. But for me, there are forgotten people on Staten Island. There are actually people there that just get overlooked all the time. And that stereotype of what Staten Island is, maybe it applies to 30 or 40%. And the rest of it, as Jeff pointed out, incredibly diverse place, interesting place.
I have a question.